Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be doing something that we haven't done in quite some time. We're actually going to be talking a little bit of DFS, talking Week 1 Draftkings NFL. Obviously, the NFL season does kick off on Thursday night with the Bills and the Rams, and we're going to talk through the Draftkings Showdown slate. I know I haven't made DFS content in quite a while. The last time I made a DFS video was during NBA season. During NFL or during MLB this year, just decided not to cover DFS. I figured there wouldn't be a ton of interest there. Decided to really focus on prize picks and player props, and we'll talk about prize picks in a second. But I'm excited to be talking DFS again. I do plan on covering the showdown slates this year, like I've always done. The Monday Night Football showdown slates, Thursday Night Football showdown slates. Don't think I'm going to do Sunday night just because Sunday night is not a it's not a slate that garners as much attention, and I'm usually sweating out my lineups during Sunday afternoon, so I don't really have time to look at the Sunday night slate. But definitely every Monday night and Thursday night football game, the primetime games, I will be making videos covering the showdown slates. I'm also going to be making prize picks videos, and this is something that I did not do last year. But I will be talking through prize picks this year. Probably tomorrow is when I'll upload my prize picks video for Thursday Night Football. And if you are new here, prize picks is actually the sponsor of this video. You can check out prize picks, link down below in the description, or just when you sign up, make sure to use promo code NOAH. When you sign up, you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. And I want to give a shout out to prize picks because they're running a great promo right now. And if you actually look on the screen, Prize Picks is offering a free square pretty much. They have Tom Brady's passing yards set at 0.5. Obviously, you're going to take the over on that. It's basically a free pick that Prize Picks is giving you, and you just have to find any other pick that you like to pair with that. You can pair up to 5 picks. So you can do a 5-pick entry. You could do just a 2-pick entry. If you do just a 2-pick entry, you would triple up your money, assuming the pick you pick, you get right. But you can do 2 picks, 3 picks, 4 picks. You just got to find some stuff you like. And Prize Picks already has a ton of player props posted for Thursday Night Football, for the full Sunday slate of games. Again, I will be making my video for Thursday Night Football for Prize Picks, talking through a couple player props I like for the Thursday night game. So if you want to wait and put your entry in when I post that video, you can do so. I will also be making a video for the full Sunday slate of games. And I would say that's probably the best time to put your entry in, just because you have a ton of props to choose from. There's a lot more games, rather than just putting all your money on one game. Like you don't want to force yourself to bet just one specific game. You want to give yourself multiple options. And obviously for the full Sunday slate, you have 14, 15 games on Sunday. But yeah, man, check out Prize Picks. They're a newer DFS site. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of them, but if you have not, definitely get over there. Take advantage of this free square promo that they're running. Take a look at all the props they already have up for NFL for this week. They said that all the props they have up right now is not even close to their full board. Like they still have a ton of props that they're going to add. I know they do fantasy point projections. They're going to add those, which is what I like to look at. But they've got a ton of player props up. It's very simple. You're just picking the over or the under if you have a lean on one way or the other on a specific line. And yeah, you can pair that with the Tom Brady 0.5 passing yards. Take the over on that. Find any other picks you'd like to pair with that. But if you're new here, definitely sign up for Prize Picks. Make sure to use promo code NOAH when you do sign up. Get your first deposit matched up to $100. But let's go ahead and talk through this DraftKings Showdown slate, man. We're just going to kind of do it like we normally do. We're going to go through the player pool kind of from top to bottom. Might not talk about like every single player on the slate, but definitely the guys that are in play, that are viable, we'll hit on. So we'll kind of start off at the top and work our way down. At the top, Cooper Kupp is the most expensive option on this showdown slate, and to no surprise, Cooper Kupp had the best wide receiver season last year. He was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I have some stats pulled up on my other monitor. Like last year, Cooper Kupp averaged over 11 targets per game. He averaged 8.5 receptions per game, averaged over 114 yards per game, and all those numbers were number 1 in the league. I mean, he was the best receiver in the league last year. He had a credible year for fantasy, averaged almost 30 DraftKings points per game. Literally have nothing negative to say about Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp is really expensive, but there is value on this showdown slate that we'll talk about. I think Cooper Kupp's probably one of the best plays on the slate, man. I mean, there's no way to go around it. He's going to be really popular, but this could be one of those scenarios where you just kind of have to kind of eat the chalk, I think, and then just kind of get different elsewhere. With these showdown slates, it is hard to make unique lineups. I mean, when you only have 6 roster spots, you're going to see a lot of duped lineups. You're going to see just a lot of people having the same lineups pretty much. And when you're looking at the Millionaire Maker, obviously this is DraftKings kind of their number 1 tournament for Thursday night. I mean, there's 355,000 people in this contest, or 355,000 entries, assuming it fills. I mean, trying to make a unique lineup out of 355,000 is tough. You're going to have to get a little bit different. You're going to have to get off the board. But I think, when it comes to a guy like Cooper Kupp, I don't know if fading Cooper Kupp would be the way that I would want to get different. I think Cooper Kupp is definitely one of the best plays on the showdown slate, whether you're playing him at captain or just as a flex option. Obviously, for captain, you're getting 1.5x points. So, who you pick at captain is very important. Usually, most of the time, whoever scores the most fantasy points in the game is usually going to be the winning captain, but that's not always the case. Sometimes if a guy has a really, it winds up being a really good value, a really good point per dollar play, they could also wind up being like the winning captain. But I think Cooper Kupp's a great play. I think both quarterbacks are great plays as well. I mean, Josh Allen, we know what he brings to the table. He has an incredibly high floor, an incredibly high ceiling as well. And this is one thing that I've always said when it comes to these showdown slates. Quarterbacks are normally always going to be staples of my lineups, in my opinion, at least. Rarely do I fade both quarterbacks. Like normally, when you look at the winning lineups on these showdown slates, a lot of times, at least one, if not both of the quarterbacks is going to be in the winning lineup, just because quarterbacks have such high floors. Even when a quarterback has a bad game, and talking about a guy like Josh Allen, like a bad game from Josh Allen is 20 DraftKings points. I mean, last year he had averaged 27 DK points per game. His two worst games of the year last year were when he scored 12 DK points against Jacksonville, and somehow Buffalo only put up 6 points that game. And then he had 12 DraftKings points in another game against New England. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that was a game where, I think it was the wind was terrible, the weather was terrible, and Allen just had a bad game in general. But yeah, I mean, Allen just has such a high floor, such a high ceiling. I think he's probably, him and Cooper Kupp are kind of the two best plays on the slate. And I know that sounds stupid because they're the most expensive options. Obviously, they're clearly the best two plays on the slate. But when you're looking at floor, when you're looking at ceiling, I don't think anyone really comes close to Kupp and Allen. I think Matthew Stafford's a safe option too. I mean, we know Matthew Stafford has upside. I just don't think he has the same upside that Josh Allen does. Specifically with Josh Allen's rushing upside, that just kind of puts him on another level. I'm pretty sure Josh Allen was the overall QB1 last year. But Stafford's got, a good ceiling. I mean, he has the potential to throw for 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. This is expected to be a fairly high-scoring game. Right now, this game has a 52.5 total. So, if this winds up being a little bit of a shootout, we could see Matthew Stafford have one of those games where he throws for 350 yards and multiple touchdowns. I think he's a really strong play, too. I would definitely side with Allen over Stafford just straight up. But it really comes down to roster construction. It comes down to how you're building your lineups. Like if you're playing Cooper Kupp at captain, I think in that scenario, it makes sense to play Matthew Stafford in those lineups. In my opinion, anytime you play a receiver at captain, you always want to pair the receiver with the quarterback. If you're assuming that the receiver is having a really big game, that probably means that the quarterback is also having a solid game as well. But man, both quarterbacks are very strong plays here. They're very high floor plays. If you're playing cash games on this showdown slate, I think you probably want to start with both quarterbacks if possible. If you can build a lineup with Kupp, Allen, Stafford in cash games, that's probably what you want to try and do. And I know that might be tough, but we will talk about some value later that does stand out. But then you get to this mid-tier where you have some of the running backs and the receivers. We'll talk about the Buffalo receivers first. You got Stephon Diggs at 9K. You got Gabe Davis at 7,200. Stephon Diggs, he didn't have a year that a lot of people thought he would have. He definitely kind of started off the season a little rough. He didn't have a ton of massive games last season, but Diggs is a wide receiver one that's going to get a ton of targets. Obviously, Buffalo last year, they were one of the biggest pass-heavy teams in the league. I mean, they threw the ball a ton. Buffalo rarely ran the ball, so Diggs is going to get the volume. Matchup against the Rams, the Rams, their defense is good, but I know Jalen Ramsey, I don't get too much into wide receiver quarterback matchups, but I know last year Jalen Ramsey really didn't shadow at all. So I don't think we really have to worry about Diggs getting shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. And Ramsey is a really good corner, but yeah, he hasn't really been following receivers around. Maybe they changed things up this year, I don't know. But I think Diggs at 9K is a very solid option in the mid-range. He's a little bit cheaper than a guy like Cooper Kupp. Does he have the same ceiling that Cooper Kupp does? Possibly. If Buffalo winds up scoring a ton of points here, that could mean a big game from Stephon Diggs. One of those games where he has over 100 receiving yards and multiple touchdowns. If you need the savings, dropping down from Kupp to Diggs, I don't hate it. Kupp is obviously a very scary fade, but I think Diggs at 9K is a really strong option. I think Gabe Davis at 7,200 is going to be a pretty popular play in this mid-range. Gabe Davis is definitely the clear wide receiver 2 for Buffalo heading into this year. Obviously, Buffalo no longer has Cole Beasley. They no longer have Emmanuel Sanders. Davis, we saw kind of break out early or late in the year last year. He wasn't really involved early on in the season. I mean, he was basically like their wide receiver 5. I mean, he was behind Beasley and he was behind, or wide receiver 4, I should say. He was behind Beasley and he was behind Sanders kind of in the depth chart last year. Well, kind of late in the season, especially in the playoffs, he really emerged as kind of a go-to option for Josh Allen. We saw him have that massive game against KC, where he had over 200 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, there was last year against the Jets, last game of the regular season, he had 14 targets. I think Davis is going to have a big year. I know a lot of people are expecting Gabe Davis to have a breakout year. And I think the $7,200 price tag does look very, very appealing for Gabe Davis. I do like him quite a bit in the mid-range. And then these running backs, I think the running backs are going to be fairly contrarian on this slate. Like, I don't think a ton of people are going to roster Cam Akers, Devin Singletary, and then we'll talk later about Darrell Henderson. He might get some ownership because he's so cheap. But specifically Cam Akers and Devin Singletary, I think at their price points, they're not going to be as popular as a Diggs or as an Allen Robinson, who we'll talk about in a second. Cam Akers last year, especially late in the year in the playoffs, we saw him have issues with fumbling the ball. Honestly, he almost cost the Rams that game against Tampa Bay. His workload was still solid though. Like, he's still getting good volume. 14 touches against San Fran. He got 16 touches in the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. What are we going to get from Cam Akers this year? I really don't know. I'm a big Florida State fan, so I've watched Cam Akers play a lot when he was at Florida State, and I always thought he was a really talented running back. But how are they going to split the work between him and Darrell Henderson? I mean, we just don't know. That is one of the, when you're looking at week 1 in the first game of the season, you don't know what coaches are going to do. You don't know how the workloads are going to be split. So I think at $8K, at this price point, Akers is probably not going to get much ownership. I think he's definitely a contrarian play on this slate. I do have access to projections, and I think right now Akers is not projected to really get a ton of ownership. Like right now, his projected ownership, total projected ownership is only 22%, which is definitely low for a showdown slate. So if you want to be different, if you want to take a stand, go ahead and roster Cam Akers. I think it's definitely a risky play just because we don't exactly know what kind of workload Akers is going to get. I do expect him to split touches with Darrell Henderson. Is it going to be a 60-40 split, 70-30 favoring Akers? Is it going to be 50-50 dead down the middle? We just don't know. But I think in the mid-range, if you want to roster Akers, he's fine. I think he is more of a contrarian option, though, on the slate. I think Devin Singletary at 7K is probably going to be a contrarian option as well. We saw him have a great year last year towards the end of the year, and especially in the postseason. He clearly established himself as the RB1 for Buffalo late in the year and in the playoffs. But now the Buffalo drafted James Cook. They got Dalvin Cook's brother. They still have Zach Moss as well behind Singletary. So are we going to get like a 3-headed committee at running back for Buffalo this year? Is Moss and Cook going to be involved? I expect Cook to be involved, especially because they used such an early draft pick on him. So there's a good chance that it might be a committee between Singletary and Cook, and then you might see Zach Moss get some of the goal line work. I think Cook will definitely be involved in pass down situations. Maybe Singletary will be kind of the early down running back. He'll get the first down touches, the second down touches, and then on third downs they'll bring in James Cook. But at 7K again, like I think at this price tag with the uncertainty around his workload, I think there is. You're going to see fairly low ownership on Singletary. Obviously, he's still going to be owned, but on a showdown slate, I don't expect Singletary to be like 60-70% owned. I would definitely think he's going to come in like in the 20s to 30s. He's more of a contrarian play. I don't have a ton of confidence in Singletary, but again, if you're playing like the Millie Maker, if you want to take a stand, if you're trying to win first place, load up on the running games. I mean, load up on Cam Akers, load up on Singletary, because those are definitely going to be the contrarian ways to go. Those are guys that are not really going to get much ownership. And then you got someone like Dawson Knox at 6,800. I think the one positive thing to say about Dawson Knox is that he's just going to be on the field a ton. The Bills, they released O.J. Howard, so I think clearly, Dawson Knox is going to be probably in every down tight end this year. He might play legit every single snap this year. I know last season he played like over 90% of the snaps pretty much every game. The upside on Dawson Knox, I think he's definitely going to have to get into the end zone probably once, if not twice, to justify this price tag. At 6,800, it's going to be hard for him to pay off this price without finding the end zone, but he's going to be on the field for probably every snap. He's going to be running routes. I mean, that's what you want. Obviously, you want a guy that's going to be on the field, and we know Knox is going to be on the field. How much is he going to be involved behind Diggs, behind Gabe Davis, and potentially behind Crowder and McKenzie? That's, I guess, to be determined. I think 6,800 at that price tag, he's probably going to be more of a contrarian option as well. I expect Gabe Davis to get more ownership than Knox. I expect Allen Robinson, who we'll talk about in a second, to get more ownership than Knox. But I do expect Knox to be on the field a ton, so he is definitely rosterable if you want to go there. Then Allen Robinson, I think, is going to be a very popular option on the Showdown slate. He's kind of, I'm pretty sure he's going to be the clear wide receiver 2 for the Rams this year. Obviously, the Rams no longer have Robert Woods. They traded him away to the Titans. And obviously, OBJ is not healthy. He's a free agent. So I think it's going to be Allen Robinson kind of behind Cooper Kupp. Now, how much volume is Allen Robinson going to get when he's fighting for targets with Cooper Kupp? That's, I guess, to be determined. But we've never really seen Allen Robinson play with a good quarterback. I always thought that Allen Robinson was a really talented receiver. He just needed a better quarterback, and now he's finally got him a good quarterback to play with. He's finally got a good offense that he's in. I think a lot of people are expecting Allen Robinson to finally have that breakout year, and he might have it this year. He really might, and it could start in week 1. I think it's 6,200 at this price tag with the volume that he's expected to, or he's projected to get, with the amount of time or the amount of playing time that he should get, how much he should be on the field. He's probably going to be an every down receiver for the Rams this year. At 6,200, he looks like a very strong value option. I expect him to be fairly popular, but I don't really have much negative to say about Robinson, just except that he's going to be very popular. That's all that I can really say. I think points per dollar wise, when you're just looking at raw projection, Gabe Davis, Allen Robinson are definitely like the 2 best plays in this mid-range, and Diggs I like a lot as well. And then if you want to get contrarian, look at the running backs. The running backs are definitely going to be lower owned on this Showdown slate. Akers, Singletary, and then we'll talk about some of the other the backup running backs in a second. But let's move down a little bit, below 6K, kind of talk about some more value pieces. You got Tyler Higbee at 5,600, who also probably will be close to an every down tight end this year. I don't think the Rams really have anyone behind him to take snaps away. I'm pretty sure they released Kendall Blanton. I think Bryson Hopkins is still on the roster. He's like their only tight end, or he might even got released. Honestly, I can't remember exactly, but I know they did release Kendall Blanton. So yeah, I think Tyler Higbee's going to be close to an every down tight end this year. He's kind of similar to, he's basically a cheaper version of Dawson Knox. He's going to be on the field a ton, but in order for him to be worth rostering, he's probably going to have to get into the end zone. If you look at his game log last year, like most of the games where Higbee scored 15 plus Draftkings points, usually those were games where he scored a touchdown. This game where he had 23 DK points, he got into the end zone twice. This game where he scored 11 DK points, he got into the end zone. He did have a game where he had 5 catches for 51 yards. But in order for Higbee to justify the salary, you're probably going to need him to get into to find the box, to get into the end zone. But I do expect him to be on the field a ton. I do expect the playing time to be there. How many targets is he going to get? I think probably 5 to 6 is a pretty reasonable projection, maybe right around there. At 5,600, he's definitely an okay value play. I don't mind going to Tyler Higbee. I think Jamison Crowder will be a very low-owned value play. Right now, it looks like he's going to be the wide receiver 4 for Buffalo this year. It looks like Isaiah McKenzie is actually ahead of Crowder on the depth chart. So we're going to talk about McKenzie. He is way cheaper than Crowder. I expect McKenzie to be a lot more popular. Very similar to the running backs. If you're looking for like a leverage play, a guy that's going to be low-owned, look to Jamison Crowder. We don't really know what we're going to get from Jamison Crowder. Obviously, this is his first year with Buffalo. But I always thought Jamison Crowder was kind of a talented receiver. He had some big games when he was with the Jets, and that was with very poor quarterback play. Now, obviously, playing with Josh Allen, we could see Crowder have some big games this year. I'm a little bit worried about the playing time. We don't exactly know how many snaps he's going to be on the field for. If he is their wide receiver 4, he might only play 30, 40% of the snaps. But if he gets 4 or 5 targets, if he finds the end zone at 5K, he could definitely be worth rostering. He's going to be low-owned, I'd assume. That's kind of another leverage play you could look to is Crowder. Darrell Henderson at 4,800. If it's a 50-50 split between him and Akers, I think Henderson's a really good value play. Just because if you don't want to pay, when you're looking at salary, Cam Akers is 8K, Henderson is 4,800. If it's going to be a 50-50 split between those two guys, obviously Henderson is the way better play just because he's way cheaper. The thing we don't know though is just what's the workload going to look like? Is it going to be 60-40 favoring Akers? Is it going to be 70-30 favoring Akers? Is it going to be 50-50? We don't know. Right now, Darrell Henderson is projecting out as a pretty good value play, and on the site that I look at for projections, they actually have Henderson and Akers almost projected the exact same. So I think Henderson, if Henderson and Akers are projected the exact same, that kind of tells you that Henderson is going to stand out as a really good value play. I'm a little bit hesitant on that. I think Akers does have the upper hand on Henderson, but we really don't know what Sean McVay is going to do. We don't know how he's going to use Henderson and Akers. We don't know how their workload's going to be divvied out. But at 4,800, if he does wind up getting, 10 to 12 carries, maybe a couple targets. At this salary, he's going to project out as a really good value. I'm not 100% confident that that happens. I think Henderson does carry a little bit of risk, but he is so cheap that he is someone that I am definitely looking to as a value play. Van Jefferson, he's just kind of like a dart throw. I mean, his health has always been an issue. He was banged up a lot last year. He was a guy that I played a lot on showdown slates just because he was always so cheap and he always had big play upside. I always felt like Jefferson was a guy that could break off a long touchdown, and he did have a couple long touchdowns last year. How much playing time is he going to get for the Rams? I mean, he's probably going to be their wide receiver 3, I would assume, but we don't exactly know how many targets he's going to get. We don't really know what his health is. I think he's definitely a risky value play. I do honestly have a little bit more confidence in Darrell Henderson. I think I would play Darrell Henderson straight up over Van Jefferson. Right now, Van Jefferson is not really projecting that well. He's not really projected for many points. I think right now he's actually they have him projected for 0 points, so he might not actually even play this game. It looks like he wasn't spotted for Tuesday's practice, so that will be something to monitor. If Van Jefferson does not wind up playing, that probably means that Ben Skoranek or Tutu Atwell, one of those two guys, would kind of step in and fill the wide receiver 3 spot. It probably would be Skoranek, and he's only $1,800. If we do get no Van Jefferson, I think Skoranek as a punt play is going to be someone definitely worth keeping an eye on and worth rostering. But yeah, Van Jefferson, if he does play, I think he's nothing more than just a dart throw. You're hoping that he catches a long touchdown. I have no confidence in Van Jefferson. I'm definitely worried about his health. So yeah, not much interest there. The kickers and the defenses, the kickers are always solid floor plays. Kickers are normally going to give you anywhere from 8 to 10 points. Sometimes on higher scoring games, you will actually see kickers score more points. So in what's expected to be a high scoring game, we could definitely see the kickers stand out as good values. I never hate playing one of the two kickers. Rarely do you see both kickers make the winning lineup. So I do try and limit myself to just one kicker per lineup. And then the defenses. For defense, you normally you would think a low-scoring, sloppy game would be a spot to target defenses, but people actually say that a higher-scoring game is good for defensive scoring, just because when quarterbacks are dropping back more when they're having to throw, that leads to sacks, that leads to fumbles, that leads to interceptions, which is obviously what you need for defensive scoring, and then pick sixes and stuff like that. I think the defense will be contrarian value plays, but in what should be a high-scoring game, and in a game that you should see a lot of pass attempts, there's obviously a chance that we get a pick six or we get a scoop and score or something like that. But the kickers and the defenses, I'm not loving on this slate. I think you have better values when you're looking at some of these wide receivers. I do expect Isaiah McKenzie to probably be the most popular value play on the slate. He is going to be the wide receiver 3 for Buffalo, or at least that's what it seems like. He's going to be their slot receiver. He's basically going to fill the role that Cole Beasley played. And we saw Cole Beasley, he was a guy that averaged 4, 5, 6 targets a game last year. I think McKenzie's going to be a guy that probably gets 4 or 5 targets a game at least. He's going to be on the field for a decent amount of snaps. He's only $2,400. I think he's definitely incorrectly priced for what his role is going to be. Obviously, he was not their slot receiver last year. He wasn't a guy that really got a ton of playing time. But I think he's always been a guy that has talent. He's a pretty quick receiver, and I know he's been a guy that they use, I think, for punt returns and stuff like that. If I'm not forgetting, or if I remember correctly. But at $2,400 for getting a wide receiver 3 at $2,400 is always going to stand out as a good value, especially playing for this really good Buffalo offense, playing in what should be a high-scoring game. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for McKenzie to get fantasy points as their wide receiver 3. So at $2,400. He's definitely one of the best point per dollar value plays. He's going to be very popular, I would assume, but I definitely like McKenzie just as a raw value play. I think he does stand out as a strong play. And then keep an eye on that Rams news with Van Jefferson, because if Van Jefferson does not play, you can look to guys like Ben Skoranek, you can look to guys like Tutu Atwell. I don't have much confidence in either one of those guys, but they're going to have to be on the field. They're going to have to fill the playing time that Jefferson would get. So they are cheap options that you could consider. And I don't think there's much more that I'm really looking at. James Cook, we didn't really talk about him. Obviously, he's a guy that the Bills drafted in the second round, Dalvin Cook's brother. I think he's got talent. How much playing time is he going to get behind Devin Singletary and maybe behind Zach Moss? I think at this point, Cook has established himself as the number 2 ahead of Zach Moss. He's probably going to be like a pass down back. I think a rough projection for Cook is probably 5 to 6 carries and maybe 2 to 3 targets. If he can break off a long run or maybe get a screen path that he takes to the house or something, there's always a chance that Cook winds up being a top value play. I would say I do prefer McKenzie just straight up. I think McKenzie straight up is a better value. But Cook, I would assume, is going to be fairly low owned. Right now, Cook's total projected ownership is just 16.8%. So that could obviously change as we get closer to the start of the games Thursday, if projections wind up getting updated. But I don't think Cook's gonna be too popular of a value. I expect McKenzie to get more ownership. You could definitely see a guy like Skoranek get more ownership if Van Jefferson winds up sitting this game. So he's a viable dart throw, but that's probably it for the showdown slate, man. I don't know if there's really anyone else worth talking about. So I think we kind of covered everything, guys. Again, appreciate you guys watching this video. I do plan on covering the Monday Night Football showdown slates and the Thursday Night Football showdown slates every single week. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, hopefully you will enjoy the DFS content that I do put out this year. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we will be making a lot of Prize Picks content this year. So if you're new and if you have not checked out Prize Picks yet, get over there. Make sure to sign up. Use promo code NOAH. Take advantage of this promo they're offering with Tom Brady's passing yards. They have his passing yards set at 0.5. It's a free square. You would take the over on that. Find any other prop that you like to pair with that. You can pair 1 pick, 2 picks, 3 picks, whatever you want to do. You can win up to 10x your money on Prize Picks. And if you guys are going to if you want to tail me throughout this NFL season, I will be making Prize Picks videos pretty much, I think 3 times a week. I'm going to make a video for every Thursday Night Football game. I'm going to make a Prize Picks video for every Monday Night Football game. And I'm going to make one for the full Sunday slate of games. So there's going to be a lot of Prize Picks content coming on the channel throughout this NFL season. You're definitely going to want to be playing over there. So make sure to sign up for Prize Picks. Use code NOAH when you sign up and get your first deposit matched up to $100. But that's all that I got for this Week 1 Thursday Night Football slate, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Wish you the best of luck on the slate. If you're playing in the Millie Maker, hope one of you guys ship that Millie. If not, maybe split it with some people. But it's going to be a fun game. I'm excited for the NFL season this year. I'm excited to be making NFL content again. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. And, best of luck tonight, guys. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.